He called me worthless trash in front of 300 millionaires, laughing as I stood there in my $30 dress. What he didn't know? I had killed terrorists with my bare hands and commanded armies in war zones. When my general walked in and saluted me, this billionaire literally fainted. What you're about to hear will make your blood boil and then give you the most satisfying justice moment ever. If you love seeing bullies get what they deserve, hit that like button now because this revenge is absolutely legendary. Trust me, you've never heard anything like this. Let me take you back to that night. It was the annual Emerald Charity Gala, one of those events where billionaires pretend to care about poor people while sipping $1,000 champagne. The venue was absolutely stunning. Crystal chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's houses hanging from gold-painted ceilings. Marble floors imported from Italy stretched across the grand ballroom, and everywhere I looked, there were women dripping in diamonds and men wearing watches worth more than luxury cars. I walked in wearing my simple burgundy dress that I'd bought online for $30. Nothing fancy, nothing flashy, just clean and appropriate. Around me, women were wearing designer gowns that cost $50,000 or more. Their jewelry caught the light like tiny stars, and their perfume mixed together into this overwhelming cloud of expensive scents. I felt like I'd stepped into a different world, which I guess I had. Here's the thing, though. These people had no idea what I'd survived. They saw my simple dress and my lack of designer accessories, and they made assumptions. They didn't see the small scar on my collarbone that I'd covered with makeup, the one I got from shrapnel in Afghanistan. They couldn't see the memories I carried of holding dying soldiers in my arms or the weight of commanding thousands of troops in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. I was there on strict military protocol. When you're an active colonel attending civilian events, especially charity functions, you're supposed to keep a low profile. No uniforms, no name-dropping, no making it about yourself. The mission was simple. Show up, represent the military quietly, write a check, and leave. I'd done this dozens of times before without incident, but tonight was different. Tonight, I was about to meet Benedict Harrison. I noticed him before he noticed me. He was standing near the champagne fountain, holding court with a group of other wealthy men and their wives. Benedict was maybe 45, with perfectly styled silver hair and a smile that looked like it had been practiced in the mirror. His tuxedo probably cost more than most people make in a month, and he wore it like armor. Everything about him screamed money and power and the absolute certainty that he was better than everyone else in the room. His voice carried across the ballroom when he laughed, and I could tell he was the kind of man who needed everyone to know he was there. The people around him hung on his every word, laughing at jokes that probably weren't funny and agreeing with opinions that probably weren't smart. It was like watching a performance where everyone knew their role. I was trying to stay invisible, sipping my water and observing the crowd, when his eyes landed on me. I watched his expression change from casual interest to something that made my stomach turn. It was the look a predator gets when it spots prey. He excused himself from his group and walked over to me with that practiced smile. "Excuse me, miss," he said, his voice dripping with false politeness. "Did you get lost on your way to serve drinks?" The question hit me like a slap, not because it hurt my feelings, but because I recognized the tactic immediately. This was psychological warfare, and I'd seen it 1,000 times in different forms. He was testing me, looking for a reaction, trying to establish dominance. In the military, we call this probing for weakness. I kept my voice calm and level. "I'm a guest, actually. Here for the charity auction." His smile widened, but not in a good way. "Oh, really? That's interesting. I know pretty much everyone who can afford to be here tonight." He looked me up and down deliberately, making sure I knew he was judging every inch of me. "That's a lovely dress." Very budget-friendly. The way he said it made the people nearby start to pay attention. I could feel eyes turning toward us, conversations slowing down. Benedict had an audience now, and he was just getting started. "I'm Benedict Harrison," he announced loudly enough for others to hear. "Harrison Tech Industries. Maybe you've heard of us? We're only worth about $12 billion. He paused for effect. "And you are?" "Elena," I said simply. I wasn't about to give him my rank or last name. Not yet. Elena, he repeated, tasting my name like it was something unpleasant. Well, Elena, I have to ask, how exactly did you afford a ticket to this event? Because I know they're going for $50,000 each. My blood started to heat up, but my training kicked in. Stay calm under pressure. Don't let the enemy see they're getting to you. Gather intelligence before you act. I was invited, I said. Benedict laughed, and several of his friends joined in. Invited? By who? The catering company? More laughter. Because I have to tell you, Elena, this isn't really the place for, well, people like you. People like me. He had no idea what people like me had sacrificed for his freedom to stand in this ballroom and mock strangers. He didn't know that people like me had bled on foreign soil, so he could sleep safely in his mansion. He couldn't imagine that people like me had held the line when everything fell apart. But I stayed calm. I'm here to support the charity, I said, same as everyone else. Support the charity? Benedict's voice got louder. More heads were turning our way. Elena, honey, this charity raises money for veterans, real veterans, American heroes who fought for our country. Not... He gestured at me vaguely. Whatever this is. The irony was so thick I could taste it. Here was this man, lecturing me about supporting veterans while having no idea he was talking to one. But the worst part wasn't his ignorance. It was the way the crowd was responding. Some people looked uncomfortable, sure, but others were starting to smile. They were enjoying the show. I have great respect for our veterans, I said carefully. Oh, I'm sure you do, Benedict said with mock sincerity. We all do. But respect doesn't buy you a seat at this table, sweetie. This is a $50,000 a plate dinner. These people here, they're actually contributing something meaningful to society. They're not just... He made another dismissive gesture. A woman in diamonds leaned over to her friend and whispered something behind her hand. A man in an expensive suit chuckled and shook his head. I felt like an animal in a zoo, being watched and judged and found wanting. Benedict was warming up now. He'd tasted blood, and he wanted more. You know what I think happened here, Elena? I think you somehow got your hands on someone else's invitation. Maybe you work for one of the hotels in town, or maybe you clean houses for the right people, and you thought, hey, wouldn't it be fun to pretend to be rich for one night? The crowd around us was growing. People were pulling out their phones now, not even trying to be subtle about it. I was becoming the evening's entertainment, the poor girl getting put in her place by the important businessman. Sir, I said, my voice still level but with an edge now, I think you're making some assumptions that you might regret. Benedict threw back his head and laughed. Assumptions? Oh, this is rich. Elena here thinks she can threaten me. He turned to his audience. Did you hear that? She thinks I might regret something. More laughter. More phones pointing at me. I could feel the familiar tightness in my chest that came before combat, the hyper-awareness that meant things were about to get serious. But this wasn't a battlefield. These weren't enemy combatants. These were just cruel people having fun at someone else's expense. Look around you, Elena, Benedict said, spreading his arms wide. Look at this room. Look at these people. Do you know what the combined net worth in this ballroom is tonight? Probably more than the GDP of some small countries. And you think you belong here? You think your $30 dress and your fake confidence make you one of us? I felt something shift inside me then. Not anger exactly, but a cold, hard determination. I'd faced down Taliban fighters and international arms dealers. I'd been shot at, blown up and left for dead more times than I could count. And this soft, pampered businessman thought he could break me with words? I think, I said quietly, that you don't know who you're talking to. Benedict's eyes lit up like Christmas morning. Oh, this is even better. She's going to tell us who she really is. He addressed the crowd again. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena here is going to reveal her secret identity. What do you think? Secret heiress? Undercover journalist? Or maybe... He paused for dramatic effect. Maybe she's a Navy SEAL. The laughter was louder now. Someone in the back shouted, Ask to see her military ID. More laughter. Someone else called out, Maybe she's a general. Benedict clapped his hands together. That's it. That's perfect. Elena, are you a general? Are you here to court-martial all of us for having more money than you? I looked at him for a long moment. Really looked at him. This man who had probably never missed a meal in his life, never slept on the ground, never held a dying friend, never made a decision that meant life or death for hundreds of people. This man who thought wealth made him strong and poverty made others weak. Sir, I said one more time, my voice carrying the authority I'd learned commanding soldiers in war zones. I strongly suggest you stop this before you embarrass yourself further. But Benedict was too far gone, too high on the power trip, too drunk on the adoration of his audience. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in harder than necessary. Listen here, little girl, he said, his voice low and threatening now. This isn't your world. These aren't your people. You don't get to waltz in here and play pretend with the grown-ups. I'm going to call security, and they're going to escort you out of here, and then we're all going to forget you ever existed. The crowd was loving it. Phones were recording from every angle. Someone was probably already uploading this to social media with captions about entitled poor people trying to crash rich events. I was about to become a viral video, the cautionary tale about knowing your place. Benedict squeezed my arm tighter. Are you listening to me? I said, you're leaving. Now. That's when I heard it. The sound I'd been unconsciously waiting for all evening, though I hadn't realized it until that moment. The sharp click of military boots on marble, moving with purpose and precision. The sound of an escort forming up and advancing. The main doors of the ballroom burst open, and I watched 300 of the most powerful people in the state go silent at once. Military security detail in dress blues stepped through first, followed by a figure I knew better than almost anyone in the world. General Carlos Rodriguez, 2 stars gleaming on his shoulders, ribbons covering half his chest, walked into that ballroom like he owned it. Which, in a way, he did. When a general walks into a room, that room belongs to him, until he decides otherwise. Benedict still had his hand on my arm. He was still playing to his audience, though they'd gone strangely quiet. Oh, look, he said, trying to maintain his smug tone. Costume party guests. How fun. But his voice cracked just a little, because even civilians recognize real power when they see it, and General Rodriguez carried himself with the kind of authority that made billionaires look like children playing dress-up. The general's eyes swept the room and found me immediately. I saw his expression change when he noticed the crowd around me, the phones, Benedict's hand on my arm. His jaw tightened in a way I'd seen 1,000 times before, usually right before someone had a very bad day. He walked through the crowd, and it parted before him like water. Every step was precise, purposeful, the movement of a man who had commanded armies and toppled governments. Benedict's friends started stepping back, suddenly looking very interested in their drinks. General Rodriguez stopped in front of me, and for a moment, the only sound in the entire ballroom was the distant clink of ice in someone's glass. Then he snapped to attention with a precision that made the chandeliers ring and delivered the sharpest salute I'd ever seen. Colonel Elena Martinez, he said, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. Ma'am? Benedict's hand fell away from my arm like I'd suddenly caught fire. His face went through about 6 different colors before settling on a shade of white I'd only seen on corpses. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Ma'am, the general continued, I apologize for being late. The Pentagon briefing ran longer than expected. He looked around the room, his gaze lingering on Benedict and the phone still recording. I hope you weren't waiting long. The silence stretched on forever. 300 people who thought they knew what power looked like were staring at me with their mouths open. The woman who 30 seconds ago they'd been watching get humiliated was suddenly being treated with more respect than any of them had ever received in their lives. Colonel Martinez, the general said, louder now, addressing the room as much as me. For those who don't know, is a recipient of the Purple Heart, the Bronze Star, and the Distinguished Service Cross. She led Operation Desert Shield, where she saved 47 American soldiers under direct enemy fire. Operation Desert Shield, where she saved 47 American soldiers under direct enemy fire. She currently commands the 3rd Infantry Division and has served our country with distinction for 15 years. Benedict made a sound like a deflating balloon. His friends had vanished, melted away into the crowd like they'd never known him. The phones that had been recording his triumph were now capturing his complete and total destruction. She is, the general concluded, one of the finest officers I have ever had the privilege to serve with. I straightened into my own military bearing then, letting 15 years of command authority settle over me like a familiar coat. "Thank you, General Rodriguez," I said. "No need to apologize. I was just having an interesting conversation with Mr. Harrison here about supporting our veterans." Benedict finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a squeak. I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "No," I said calmly, "you didn't. You saw someone you thought was beneath you, and you decided to entertain your friends at my expense. You assumed that because I wasn't covered in diamonds, I couldn't possibly belong in your world." The crowd was pressing closer now, but not to watch me get humiliated. They were trying to get close to me, to apologize, to somehow undo the last hour of their lives. Rich people who had been laughing at the poor girl 10 minutes ago were now desperately trying to get the attention of the decorated war hero. "Colonel Martinez," someone called out, "we had no idea. Please accept our apologies. Ma'am, what he did was inexcusable. We're so honored to have you here." Benedict was backing away now, his face still that terrible white color, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He bumped into a waiter, stumbled, and nearly fell into the champagne fountain. "Mr. Harrison," I called out, stopping him. The entire room turned to listen. "I want you to remember something. The next time you see someone you think is beneath you, someone who doesn't look like they belong in your world, I want you to remember this moment, because you never know who you're really talking to." He nodded frantically, looking like he might actually faint. "Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, ma'am. I'm so sorry, ma'am." And then he ran, actually ran, pushing through the crowd toward the exit like the devil was chasing him. His perfectly styled hair was messed up, his expensive tuxedo was wrinkled, and his dignity was in pieces on the marble floor behind him. The event organizer approached us, practically bowing. "Colonel Martinez, we are so deeply honored to have you here tonight. Please, if there's anything we can do." "Actually," I said, "there is something. I'd like to make a donation to the Veterans Charity. I think 50,000 should cover it." The crowd erupted in applause. These people who had been ready to watch me get thrown out were now clapping for me like I'd just saved their lives, which, in a way, maybe I had. Maybe they learned something about judging people, about treating others with basic human dignity. General Rodriguez stayed for another hour, and we talked about old missions and mutual friends while some of the most powerful people in the state waited patiently for a chance to speak with us. It was surreal, watching these billionaires line up like schoolchildren hoping to get noticed by the teacher. As we were leaving, the general shook his head and chuckled. "Elena, only you could turn a charity gala into a combat operation." "I didn't start the war," I said. "I just finished it." Benedict learned that day that you can never judge someone by their appearance. This story spread through social media, but not the way he'd planned. Instead of a video of a poor girl getting put in her place, it became the story of a billionaire bully who mocked a war hero and got exactly what he deserved. His reputation never recovered. If this story gave you chills, smash that subscribe button because I have more incredible true stories coming. And remember, always be kind to others because you never know who you're really talking to. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below.